5 years had passed since Elias last stepped off the train in Skopje. He was no longer the wandering student with a single notebook, but a junior ecologist with a mission. Waiting on the platform, leaning against a pillar, was Neven. His hair was a little silvered, like the underside of an olive leaf, but his smile was as warm as the Macedonian sun. "You've returned to the Scriptorium," Neven said, clasping Elias's hand. "The library has grown, but some chapters are under threat." They walked toward the Gradsky Park, the city's green heart. The massive oriental plane trees stood like ancient guardians, their mottled trunks thick with history. Elias looked up at the canopy, noticing how the light filtered through the broad leaves. Neven explained that the rising temperatures of the valley were putting stress on the older giants. "They are the city's elders," Neven whispered. "We are here to ensure their voices don't fade into the heat." In a modern glass greenhouse nestled near the park's edge, Elias met Zoran. Zoran was a researcher who spent his days studying the perspiration of the city's trees. He showed Elias a digital interface connected to the leaves of a young oak. "The trees are talking to us through data," Zoran explained. Elias watched as the screen pulsed with the tree's internal rhythm. The Scriptorium was no longer just written in ink and wood. It was now translated into light and numbers. Neven and Zoran spread a large map across a wooden table in the center of the greenhouse. It wasn't a map of roads, but of thermal islands, the places where the stone and asphalt of Skopje trapped the most heat. "The green shield of Gazi Baba isn't enough anymore," Zoran noted, tracing a red zone on the map. They discussed where the next chapter of the forest needed to be planted to cool the feverish streets of the modern city. Elias returned to the old bazaar, finding his way back to the hidden courtyard of the spice merchant. Kalina was there, sitting among her herbs. Though her movements were slower now, she remembered Elias instantly. She brewed him a cup of the mountain tea he had first tasted years ago. "The soil remembers you," she said, her voice like rustling leaves. "But the city is changing, Elias. The old roots need new hands to guide them." A young woman emerged from the back of the garden carrying a tray of clay pots. "This is Jana," Kalina introduced. "She is the new apprentice of the earth." Jana was busy preparing seeds for the vertical Scriptorium project, where plants would grow directly onto the walls of the bazaar's ancient stone buildings. Jana showed Kalina a handful of rare seeds she had collected from the mountain slopes, her eyes bright with the same passion Elias had felt years before. Elias and Jana spent the afternoon hiking the lower slopes of Mount Vodno. They weren't just walking, they were scouting. Jana pointed out how the Crocus scardicus was blooming earlier each year. Elias took notes, realizing that Jana was the bridge between Kalina's ancient wisdom and the changing climate. Together, they mapped out the natural migration of the flora, documenting how the plants were slowly climbing higher to find the cool air they craved. Near the peak, they met Neven, who had arrived with a truckload of young saplings. He handed Jana a sturdy shovel. "Today, we write a new verse," Neven announced. They began to plant the resilient Balkan maples along a ridge that had been scarred by a previous summer's fire. As Jana dug into the earth, Neven showed her how to cradle the roots so they wouldn't break, ensuring the future of the mountain's canopy. As the sun began to set over the Shar Mountains in the distance, Elias and Neven sat on a stone wall overlooking the glowing city of Skopje. The Vardar River looked like a silver thread weaving through the emerald patches they had fought to protect. "The Scriptorium is never finished," Neven mused. Elias realized that his job wasn't just to study the plants, but to be a part of the living story that kept the city breathing.